All right. All right. Good Lord. This is not going to be a positive video. It's not, so I guess we need to start with disclaimers right out of the bat. I'm going to say ugly things about this game. If you're having fun with the game, that's okay. I'm an adult. It's okay to like things that I think are subpar. We all have our own opinions. So don't get hurt about what I'm going to say. It's okay to disagree with me. I don't mind. I don't care. It's good. I'm not an infallible person. Also, I'm not passing any of these thoughts in this video as like necessarily my own, or rather original. I've definitely arrived at all these thoughts myself. You know, I'm not just parroting what other people have said. Like, I do a lot, you know, after playing video games for, 37 years now. It turns out I have thoughts about it. But there's no way they're original thoughts, right? I have some pretty unique takes. But, you know, if you've heard them somewhere else, swear to God I'm not plagiarizing, but I'm not pretending I'm the first person to come up with any of these ideas. And lastly, it should be noted that, yes, I'm having fun playing Diablo 4. I'm having fun. Still. I do have to be honest, though, I'm not having a lot of fun. And for the last week or so, it's felt less like I'm playing to have fun and more like I'm playing to get my money's worth. And that is an awful place to be. So let's get right down to it. Let's get down to what's wrong. Why are we here? So we're about a month in. You know, just under a month in since early access release. And it's like one of the biggest issues, of course, is always in a game like this, in a Diablo game, in any multiplayer game, mini-game, RPG, classes, it's going to be balanced. It's going to be balanced. And what happened out of the gate, bunch of balance changes, bunch of patches, and mostly nerfs, and that's ugly. So here's the thing: did you come into a Diablo game expecting balance? If you did, you might be accused of being naive. Blizzard has been the clown prince of imbalance since like Warcraft 2 and the Bloodlusted Ogre of 1995. They haven't been able to balance the game ever. I can tell you, 7 years ago now, they, like, before Overwatch released, they came out and announced, like, hey, the game's going to come out with 21 characters, unique characters. I laughed so hard my eyes bugged out of my skull like a fucking Roger Rabbit cartoon. Like, Roger Rabbit wasn't okay. Anyway, the thought of them balancing that many characters when they can't balance, like Warcraft 2, Diablo 1 had 3 classes, piss poor balance. They've never been able to. However, pardon me, let's get worked up already this early in the video. I do think, even though I didn't expect it to happen, I still demand it. I think it's okay to demand balance at $70 more if you pre-ordered it or whatever god awful abomination you call it. Which I did, of course, because I'm a sucker. It's okay to demand some sort of impeccable. It's okay to demand that a company learn to do something right after 3 decades of game creation experience. There's too much to hope for. They didn't get it right out of the gate. Miserable imbalance. How many times have they nerfed barbs since launch? I don't know. I haven't even played a barb. I'm a rogue. They've nerfed rogues several times since launch, too. Here's the thing. Balance is so fucking important. Everything else rests on how well you balance the game. Every change, like every game design decision, you've got to balance the game. Because if you don't, this is how you end up with 16 torment difficulties, and the highest torment difficulty is still too easy for the best builds.
Do you need help?
Like, that's how they ended up in that hole. Balance was the secondary concern for them. And there is one principle that should be followed. Don't nerf, buff. Now that's how you end up with, again, 16 torment difficulties. But the time for nerfs is in beta. If you get the nerfs right, if you get balance, like some single digit percentage of each class, like I guess DPS wise, for lack of a better term. Like if they're all doing DPS, if they all have survivability within single digit percentages of one another, you can work around that. You can tweak it. Then you can build on it. You have a good foundation for a balanced game. They did not. Let me tell you, we'll get into dunking on this shitty build that I'm playing a little later in the video. It's a bad build. I'm well aware. But a good build should be roughly as good as other good builds, and that's just not the case, man. Even if I'm playing a good, like, sorceress build, it takes some effort, whereas, you know, Necro can go in and dunk Uber Lilith in 30 seconds. Clearing stuff-wise, like the Druid can run in and press the diarrhea button, clear a whole fucking dungeon in one key press. Like, the balance just isn't even close. I don't know what else to say about it. I don't want to harp on it any longer. We're not even getting into items. We're just talking about the classes themselves. Okay? You've got to do better. We'll talk about some fixes shortly. However, that's just the beginning. Balances. Look, let's move on to something everybody realized. What didn't I pick up just now? What's lying all over the place here? Okay? Gems. Gems all over the place. Now, there was a fireside chat, I don't know, maybe a little over a week ago, a couple weeks ago. They're like, okay, look, I need to talk to you. We're going to get gems out of the inventory. We're going to put them in the materials tab. Okay, no more clogging up your inventory here. Okay, it's done, it's fixed. And people, you could hear people like standing up and clapping like Citizen Kane at this supposed fix. I don't get it. I don't get why that was applauded. Like, I don't get why that's even heralded as okay. It's not. It doesn't even address the problem. You know what the problem is? What are these for? What are these for? What do they do? Okay? Look. Yes, I know. Again, shitty build. We'll get there. How many gems are there here? 1, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9. A dozen. A dozen slots on your gear, which means you need a dozen of these gems. What happens when you get an upgrade? You can take these gems out of this gear and put it in your upgrade gear. Okay. I have full stacks of the royal gems, full stacks of the flawless gems. I have one character. I'm level 89. I'm not even level capped. It's not like I've been playing this day in and day out since launch, 17 hours a day. For over a week now, this has been litter. This is trash. I haven't been picking shit up in over a week. So what are the gems for? The problem isn't that they're in your inventory taking up too much space. The problem is there's no reason to pick them up. Shoving them into the materials tab doesn't even address the problem. I don't get it. Are these are the people who are, as kids, were told to clean their room and they shoved everything on the floor under the bed and said the room was clean. This isn't the problem. The problem is there's no use for this shit. Okay? Crew gems. Pop quiz. Crew gems. What do they sell for? 4 gold. You find a crew gem. You can't even find crew gems at level 1. But if you could and you found one and it vendored for 4 gold at level 1, you would think this is litter. Pop quiz. What do royal gems sell for? That's right, 4 gold. This kind of lack of attention to detail, this lack of polish, I would forgive in like a Newgrounds game in like 2001, some sort of like Flash game or some shit. Not from a AAA company with a market cap of over $50 billion. I don't know what else to say. It has to be a fucking integer value assigned to the item. Add a couple zeros right off the top. Like, again, we'll address like actual fixes, but here's one off the top of my head. I need 12 gems for like the lifespan of my character from level 60 onwards. 12 gems. Everything else is not worth it. So how do you fix it? Well, if I need 12 gems and I have 350 of the best type of gem without trying, and then 350 more of the shit that drops, they're more than 50 times as common as they need to be. So here's an idea. Make them drop like 100 times more rarely. Not even an exaggeration. Make them drop 100 times more rarely and make them sell for a couple 100,000 gold a pop to the vendor. Gold is very important in this game. You know if you've gotten this far. So make it like important. Make them sell for a ton. Then you've got a real Sophie's choice. Do I try and like... I find a really good rare item that might be a good seed item for a legendary for another class. Do I try and sell that to another player for a couple of gems? Do I try and sell it for like... do I just vendor the item itself? Do I find a gem? Do I try and save it up for a future trade with a player? Do I save it for my own gear? Do I vendor it for some seed money? Say it's fresh in a season, and I'm hurting for cash. Do I make the hard choice and vendor the gem? It's worth a lot of gold. That's just off the top of my head. Okay, I'm not claiming that's a perfect fix, but it is better than what we got by a long shot, and it solves several problems. All of a sudden, there's a player economy. How many trades have you done with other players? That's right, none. Unless you have a friend that you're playing the game with exclusively. Even like my guild, my classic outfit. So right, gems, total nightmare. Like, and they don't even know how to fix the problem, which makes me not even hopeful for the upcoming quote-unquote balance. Alright. And that is the least of the item problems. The least of them. Let's go back. Hey, unique items. When's the last time you found a unique item that was exciting for you? If you're a druid, maybe that helmet, right? That whatever, the werewolf, or the one that lights turns, you know, tornado werewolf or werebear or whatever the hell. I don't know. I have a level 1 of the class. Every other unique is dog shit, right? The good uniques, you're never going to see them. How does that make you feel? But like, look, I'm using one. I can tell you how bad it is. Unfortunately. Well, we'll talk about it when we talk about my shitty build. But like, look at some of these fucking, like, Sky Hunter, first direct damage you deal is guaranteed to be a critical strike. And like, you might gain energy if you had max stacks of precision, like, which you have to stack it up to 5, and that involves crits, and like, you get some energy. That energy is not enough for one cast of your core skill. That classifies as like a unique thing. Like, it's super conditional and subpar. And this is the shit we were rushing to Torment in 3 and 4 to find. Like, thorns damage. Sweet. Awesome. Fun times. Like, this is a nightmare. Like that, and these are like the slightly more forgivable ones. It is conceivable that you build a really good thorns build with a barbarian, and you might use this. Like, in a really, really niche scenario. Fists of Fate. Jesus Christ almighty. Look at that top one. Up to a 5% chance to heal 696 life. Okay, 757 item power is like, that's the highest tier, right? That's like, these things can roll higher. Like, it can roll up to 743 heal. But, and like, you can upgrade it, but that's as high as it gets. Like, there's not a whole tier above it. 696 life, 5% chance on a lucky hit. If you look at my lucky hit chance on my generator skill is 50%. So that's 2.5%. It's less lucky hit chance on like my core skill. So we're talking at best a 2.5% chance to heal 696 life. Okay, that's less than 10% of my life. I press Q on demand. I'm getting more than that instantly. 827. What's 35% of 7829? Let's see, 2100. You got 2400. Somewhere around 2600. On top of the 827 I get whenever I press Q. I can press Q on demand. The potions are on the ground all over the place. So I find a fucking unique item and I get a 2.5% chance of this baby aspirin shit. And I'm supposed to be excited. The worst part of this unique item is that somebody designed it. That's actually the second worst part. The worst part is that person also collected a paycheck. 5% chance to restore 14% primary resource. Again, at best for me, 2.5% chance. It rolled perfect, 14%. Fucking barrage cost me 30. So I got a 2.5% chance to gain less than half of a cast of a core skill. Like, you add all these lucky hits together, this is nothing. This is an abortion of a piece of gear. Except it might actually be an awesome piece of gear. Because look at the bottom. Your attacks randomly deal 1 to 240% of their normal damage. We know about the damage buckets where it's like crit chance and crit damage are in their own bucket. Vulnerable damage is in its own bucket. And then like everything else is in a bucket. Those are all multiplier. But like this, like say that rolls perfect, 1 to 300%. You're averaging about 150% damage per attack. And it doesn't say your skills, it says your attacks. Who knows what that means? Because all the wording is so imprecise. There's this whole thing going on about items lying to you. Temerity, barrier up to max life. It's not actually your max life, it's your base life. It's a lie. So like, it should say your skills, but it says your attacks. And what does that mean? Does that mean attacks as in like generator skills? I don't know. Nobody knows. And here's the thing. It could be awesome because if it's 150%, maybe that damage is like considered base damage and outside the calculations of the damage buckets. So it's like 1.5 times everything. That could be really valuable, but I guarantee you the designers didn't do that on purpose. You know why? Because they put 2.5% chance of baby aspirin on a unique item. Okay? If this is a good item, it's on accident. And even if that 1.5 times is like outside the damage buckets, you're still doing a lot of calculations because you can get up to like 12% crit chance on gloves. You can get like up to like 15% attack speed on gloves, somewhere around there. So like, it's still like maybe marginally better if it gets a perfect roll. So, uniques are in a really bad place. The really good items, Harlequin Crest, Grandfather. We're approaching the end of June. 2 confirmed Shakos, 0 confirmed Grandfathers. That's way, 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 way too rare. Way too rare. That's worse than Powerball rare. Now, it's okay for items to be really rare. It's okay for items to be so rare that you're not likely to find one in a season. But that's too rare. I don't know how to explain to you how rare that is. That's you're more likely to die. You're like more than 10 times as likely to die from a falling meteorite rare. That's not fun. There's no fun value in that. And like there were items that were approaching that rare in like Diablo 2, but you know what was in Diablo 2? Good uniques. You know what was in Diablo 2? Set items. There were other pieces of gear for you to find. So like they've got to fix that shit. And obviously it goes without saying that they need more unique items too. But like what are we actually talking about? It's not unique items themselves. It's item modifiers that are the problem. Like, all of these modifiers, they're all so conditional. They're such a bummer. Why do people like crit chance and crit damage so much? Because they apply to everything. Like, you find shit that's like, it's like lucky hit chance when critting a vulnerable enemy, and it's like a 20% chance. So like it's like a 20% chance. Your lucky hit chance is 50%, and the enemy has to be vulnerable, and you have to crit them. Which like unless you're in Abyss here, you're sitting on like 15-20% crit. Like the chances are so abysmal. And then what does it do? Like what it's like 11% damage boost for 5 seconds. That is insanity. Like this happens all the time. Like let's ignore the fact that resists on gear are useless right now. That's got to be busted. And they hemmed and hawed at that, by the way, during the Fireside Chant. They're like, well, there's a lot of calculations. No, shut up. Make it a percent. Make it like it was in Diablo 2. Just do that. But anyway, it's busted. They didn't even want to admit it was busted. But they can't even say with a straight face that it's okay. So they gotta fix it. But ignore all that. Like, it's like fucking like ranks of a skill that you may or may not be using is fine. Like, yeah, 9.2% chance to execute injured non-elites. So if they're just a regular ass enemy and they're not elite, you've got a 9.2% chance if they're below like 30% HP or whatever it is to instantly kill them. Which your attacks are gonna do anyway if their damage are that low. If you need that ability, like where like you need an instant execute when you hit them, you're playing it too high a difficulty. You know, as soon as you run into like elites, you're not like they're either dying at that point or like you're in trouble. Like that might be useful if you're trying to cheese like a rank 100 nightmare dungeon. Other than that, complete waste of fucking gear slot. Complete waste. It's all useless shit like that. Like 11% damage reduction from poisoned enemies. Come on. 11%, and they got to be poisoned. So like you've got to have that build where you're poisoning enemies and keeping them poisoned, and that enemy does slightly, marginally less damage. And there's so many. There's so many of those. Boy, I really need vulnerable damage on my sword, right? I've rerolled again and again, man. I got student bills to pay, but like the next reroll is fucking 2 million gold. And I am just raising money. I'm hustling on the side of the road. I'm selling gems. That's how far up shit creek I am to pull this next reroll. I put together the scratch. Oh my God, I need this reroll. Please, daddy needs a new pair of shoes, and you reroll it. And it's like fucking like 5% chance on a lucky hit to get like 11% damage for 5 seconds when the wind is blowing westward while a bear shits under the light of the full moon. Like, that's insanity. Like, if it's bad enough that See, I'm so worked up that I'm dying in like normal dungeons here, not paying attention. but like, those are the type of affixes that nobody wants. And if you absolutely insist in putting them on your game, they need to be weighted appropriately. Let me tell you something. If I get a lucky hit and I lick my finger and put it up in the air and the wind is blowing westward and I smell bear shit on the wind, it better be like 150% damage boost, not 11%. You get what I'm saying? Like if you insist on these affixes on your gear that nobody wants, they need to be weighted such that somebody might be okay with it being there for some reason, some conceivable reason. Most of them aren't like that, and some of them are like appear good and actually aren't good. Let's talk about my shitty build for a second, and you'll see where I'm going. Like one affix that's not nearly as good as it should be. Damage to distant enemies. You've been watching me play sloppily, but like here's my build. It's bad, but on paper it should be a lot of fun. It should at least be okay. It does okay when I'm focusing. Here's what it is. Look. Basic skill damage. Okay, I've got a ton of basic skill attack speed. I use that imprint. I'm pumping basic skill damage on my gear, like every which way, and I'm pumping attack speed every way I possibly can. I've got the basic skill attack speed here. Attack speed on my gloves, basic skill attack speed on my helmet. I get attack speed boost when critting with Heartseeker, which happens all the time. That stacks up. Like, you know, I've got other attack speed boosts. Like I get attack speed on crit from like my passive. Like I don't remember all the ways I get attack speed. Then I also have Shadow Clone, which is also attacking the same speed I am. These ricochet off to other enemies. Barrages go out. They're really fast too because of the attack speed I have. Those ricochet. They ricochet in more than one way because I've got like branching volleys. So arrows are flying left, right, and center. And then like those crits give me a like movement speed boost. So not only do I have attack speed out the ass, I have movement speed boosts, right? I get movement speed when I crit. I have a very high but not perfect movement speed roll on my boots. I have movement speed boost on my amulet. One of these, like, I think, like, if I get crit, I get a movement speed. Yeah, like, a CC enemy deals damage to me, I get a movement speed boost. I get movement speed boost when I crit. I get movement speed boost when I Dark Shroud. I have 2 dashes. My evade cooldown, when I attack, it resets under a second. I have all this, okay? But let me tell you something. As soon as I get into an engagement with any enemies, like any sizable enemy engagement, here we go. Enemies, see this? 2 seconds, like 3 seconds from like off screen to 4 inches up my urethra, okay? Unless I am playing so conservatively that like I never get to see the enemies. They're up my butt. They're coming from every direction. I'm like sitting here trying my best. Like, you know. And if I want to keep them vulnerable, I have to get like a little closer to make sure my barrage is hit. So, damage to distant enemies? When is that useful? It's useful for like 1 second. Damage to close enemies? Way, 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 way better. Because enemies are directly in your colon. There's no fixing that. So why are they weighted exactly the same? Like, distant enemy damage should be like twice that, because it's only useful for like the first 2 seconds of an engagement, you know? Like, you could do better than me while I'm rambling aimlessly. But like, you get my point. And that's an affix that sounds good, let alone all these shitty ones that sound bad. Okay? And we're talking about loot here. So loot. In general, that's just loot affixes. But you want loot upgrades, right? Let's say you need a chest piece. I remember watching like a pre-release chat about loot, and like they were talking about how you gotta like different enemy types have better chances of dropping different types of loot, right? I'm not even gonna look at any of this. I'm just gonna sell it for money. I don't care right now. But like okay. Like for example, you might need to farm skeletons for boots or whatever. And like that was mentioned in like a pre-release video and then never talked about again. Then like 2 days ago, 1 or 2 days ago, like one of these big name YouTubers came out. They were talking about like, we're farming uniques all wrong. This is how you farm unique items. And like it talked all about like the weighted like drops based on the enemy type. Turns out that's in the game. Now, maybe I don't need to tell you why that's such a stupid fucking design decision. How it's like beyond sad. Because it's like 5 times weighted or something like that. It's a really bad design. But maybe you don't know off the top of your head, but that's okay. Because you're not the game designer. Blizzard is. And they thought it was a good idea, and it's really not. Let me tell you why. Nightmare dungeons. They want you in Nightmare dungeons so bad. But to get into Nightmare dungeons, you need a key for the dungeon. And the key that you get is a random dungeon, and the random dungeon might not need the enemy type you use. So like if you want to farm like seed gear for like you need a seed chest piece for like a legendary chest piece, you're gonna find that enemy type. You're gonna look it up in a guide, which enemy drops that type, because they don't make it obvious in game, of course. Why would they do that? Don't make it obvious in game. Just make it this fucking stupid ethereal like thing that they mention in like a video, and you have to look it up in a guide on Maxroll or whatever. Now you're gonna go farm that dungeon over and over again, but in the meantime, while you're farming that dungeon over and over again for your chest piece, you're not leveling your glyphs because you're not doing nightmare dungeons. So why are you creating this tug of war between between your types of gameplay? Why is it such a sin that you might want to farm a particular slot of gear and do nightmare dungeons at the same time? Because let me tell you, whether you're doing a nightmare dungeon or a regular dungeon, you're also getting shafted on open world events. Because you're in a dungeon and like a Legion event pops. See this? There's a world boss happening in 17 minutes. But I was in a dungeon. Did we, viewer, did we see a notification for that event? No, because we were doing a dungeon. Why the fuck are you punishing your players for doing types of content by excluding them from other kinds of content? Why can't they achieve several goals at once? Why can't I do a nightmare dungeon while I am farming specifically for like boots? And also like keep an ear to the ground for like a Legion event or a Hell Raid or a world boss. Like, why are you punishing this? You should like, so, you know, here's again, we'll talk fixes, but like, here's a fix, okay? Elixirs. What are elixirs used for? Here we go. XP boost. Did I look at what I just drank? No. Because what it actually does doesn't matter. What it's actually doing is XP boost. The really good ones, like 15% crit, we're saving those for pushing nightmare boosters. Everything else, we just don't care. We want the XP boost. And literally, like, the inventory space is at such a premium that we're just like, oh shit, like, I need my XP boost. Like, oh fuck. Like, I need to drink a potion fast, but it needs to not be a good one. And like an enemy dropped like a fucking cold resist elixir. So like, we're doing the equivalent of like chugging like a half drunk Capri Sun we found on the side of a freeway just to get something down our throat road. Because we don't care what the fucking elixirs do. Pardon me. So, here's a fix. Here's a fix that addresses several of your problems. Elixirs that buff the drop rate of certain types of items. I'm going to make a stack of elixirs. I really need a crossbow for my build. If I want to fix my build, I'm going to max barrage, and I'm going to make it a barrage close damage build instead of the fun Heart Seeker build that I wanted to make, that I dreamed of. I'm going to turn it into barrage, but I really need like a good crossbow. I haven't found a good sea crossbow yet, so I'm going to like find a... I'm going to make an elixir that buffs the drop rate of crossbows. It doesn't have to be overpowered. It doesn't have to be oops all crossbows. Just make them 3 times as likely to drop. Like, if enemy types are weighted to be 5 times as likely to drop shit, 3 times as likely isn't a big ask, okay? It doesn't make sense. Okay, shut the fuck up for a second. It doesn't make sense. It makes about as much sense for an elixir to buff the drop rate of an item type as it does for bears to have a high chance to drop crossbows. It doesn't matter. It would be more fun. And then we could do the content we want and farm for the items we want. It would make elixirs fun again. It would make nightmare dungeons more rewarding. Here's a fucking idea. Right here, right now. You can make one of the reagents for these elixirs. You can make them gems. Just solved another one of your problems. You see what I'm talking about here? Like, there are ways to address these problems that like, don't punish the player. So, like, why this content tug-of-war, right? Why does the open world, like, why do you feel like you're wasting time when you do open world content like this? Because you're not grinding nightmare dungeons for level 4. Like, and the XP isn't as good because the enemies are just scaled to your level as opposed to +3. Like, why can't I get... Like, why can't I get a notification while I'm doing a dungeon? Legions are gathering in the south. Strange rumblings are heard to the east. Like, notifications that, like, hey, finish what you're doing, or come out of your dungeon, come back in 15 minutes. There's a world boss fight. Like, why does everything have to be to the detriment of every other? Why are we only allowed to accomplish one task at a time? You know? And now, all the problems I've rambled about, multiply that by the fact that we're about to start a season. Season 1. We've been dealing with all these issues. You created a character and you thought it was fun, and then you found out over the course of the first week of the game that they nerfed your fucking class 3 times. You're like, that doesn't feel good. Like, there's a viable build for the class, but like, it doesn't feel good to play for me. So I gotta build an alt. I gotta level up this alt now. I gotta find all new gear. Blah blah blah. You finally fight that. Like, they nerf like XP and like dungeons, so you gotta figure that shit out. You deal with all this stuff. You're trying to find gear. And now you gotta do it all again because they're getting ready to start a season soon. Like, a lot of players, I get it. We all know what season meant. It means start from scratch. If you're a veteran ARPG player, you knew season meant start from scratch. And they've made a couple of concessions, but like, it still hurts. Like, let me tell you something. Boy, if I win the Powerball, like, while recording this video and a fucking Shaco drops for me, and they come out tomorrow and they go like, Season 1's dropping next week, get fucked! I'm gonna need therapy. I get a Harlequin crest, and it's not useful because I have to play the seasonal content now. Like, the timing was all wrong. This is how they should have done it. I mean, this is Captain Hindsight, but come on. This is how they should have done it. They should have had the Season 1 content closer to ready for rollout by the game launch, and the game should have launched in Season 1. And they should have been like, well, you know, the seasonal theme isn't going to be ready out of the gate, but we're going to phase it in. And Season 1 is going to be, it's going to be like, this stuff accumulates over time. This season theme, like, it ramps up into existence over the course of the first month and a half. Like, not like we're going to let you play around in a sandbox, and then now that you're used to the game, fuck all your progress. Like, that's going to be okay from season to season, but they really screwed the pooch on the preseason, because the preseason's really short. If you get really lucky and you really get awesome gear, it's going to feel shitty, because you're going to be flushing it down the toilet in a couple of weeks. Anyway, let's take a 90-degree shift here, dude. What's the easiest part of a nightmare dungeon? What's the easiest part of a regular dungeon? What's the easiest overworld content? You know it's bosses. It's not a trick question. It's bosses. What happens? I was level 60 when I got into T4. We, like, a group of 4 level 60s in our guild. We got together. We did the level 70 capstone dungeon. We got into T4. And I went and did a level 90 world boss. I was in no danger. Okay, he hit me a couple of times, and I popped potions, and I was fine. That's a world boss. Okay, what happens in nightmare dungeons? You struggle with the enemy affixes. You struggle with the dungeon affixes on the key. Like if it's a cold enchanted nightmare dungeon, you're in hell unless you're a barbarian or druid, and you're just permanently unstoppable. And then you get to the boss, and like 5 seconds later, the boss is dead. What in the fuck? How did that make it out of pre-alpha? How did you think it was okay for pushover bosses to make it in the game? I hate to have to make direct comparisons, but like, dude, did anybody there play Lost Ark? If you include like their Korean beta, like that game's been out for over half a decade, and their beta had more world bosses than the release of Diablo 4. 3 bosses? Are you shitting me? What else did that game have? The dungeon bosses are crazy. They're fun. They're cinematic in that game. Like, that's not including the 20 world bosses the game has. They have guardian raids where you just go in and it's a boss, and you and 3 other people go in and fight this boss for like 5 minutes. Tons of mechanics, several phases, like actual danger in each fight, unless you're like over geared or over leveled. Not including like the Legion raids, of which there are like each quote unquote boss has like several gates, which are like several different fights featuring the same boss, and each one of those gate fights has several phases, and each phase has a handful of mechanics. And it's also cinematic, and it's like, it's enveloping, it's fun, it's challenging, it keeps you on your toes, it makes you feel good. Now, none of this is possible without addressing your balance abortion. But what is the boss fight in this game? I'll tell you what's going to happen. I'll tell you what's going to happen in 6 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm going to have ADHD, and I'm going to forget that boss fight exists, and I'm not going to do it. But what would happen if I showed up at that boss fight? I'd follow it around, and I'd press my damage buttons, and I'd dodge the 2 or 3 moves that the boss has for the minute it takes for the little I win bar to drain, and him to drop some mediocre loot. That's beyond pathetic, and there's only 3 of those fights. Dungeon fights are a joke. 2 or 3 mechanics tops. Even if you flesh them out to the point where they didn't get pushed over in 10 seconds, they're a joke. Outside of like the 70 capstone boss and maybe Uber Lilith, everything else is sad. It's a sad, weak, wet fart. I don't feel like being diplomatic about it because it's not okay. I think it's okay to expect more, not expect more, but to demand more from a multi-billion-dollar company. I guess we will go wait for that world boss, though, so that I can... Oh, there's a Legion event. Didn't see that. That was probably a pop-up, though. But we're going to go wait at the world boss. So, I have an admission. Never played Path of Exile. Or rather, I didn't play Path of Exile for more than an hour. Let me tell you why. Like, I got to like level 8, 9, 10. Like back when the game first came out, like within a couple of weeks of it coming out, early access or whatever it was called back in the day. A couple weeks after it came out, I heard like, hey, there's a new Diablo-like game and it's pretty good. They seem to care about what they're doing. I got to like level 8, 9, 10, then I heard that there's a skill tree board. And I opened it. Let me tell you. So Final Fantasy X has like the sphere grid where like it's just like, oh, as you level up, you have to place a thing on a grid or some shit. And like there's little like gates that you need to find keys for to unlock different parts of the grid, and they're like each grid is a stat bonus, and like it was obnoxious. And I was like, this isn't even like a Final Fantasy game. I don't recognize this. I have to think. Like, I have to look at this whole board and decide where I might want to go, but I don't really know how it's weighted. I don't know how easy it is to level up in this game. I don't have any context for any of this shit. So this sphere grid really sucks. So what they did was like that leveling mechanic was locked in a room and fed a diet of cocaine for 12 years. And then after 12 years, it went to bed one night and had like a really, really bad cocaine nightmare. And it woke up with an upset tummy, took an ugly, ugly shit. And that shit was the skill tree from Path of Exile. I got to level 9 or 10 in Path of Exile. I opened the skill tree. I said no, and I uninstalled the game. A couple of years later, Path of Exile got really, really popular. And I was like, did I try that? I don't remember why I stopped playing it. Maybe it just wasn't fleshed out yet, but everybody says it's good. I'm going to go play it and see what all the fuss is about. And I installed it, and I got to level 2, and I opened the skill tree, and I went, oh yeah, that's why, and I uninstalled it again. Now you got your Path of Exile in my Diablo game. Why the fuck? Oh, God. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little too irritated at it. Like, I don't, like, this is not okay. Okay, it's not, what I will say is it's not as bad as, like, Path of Exile. But I need you to be honest with me, okay? What did people say about Path of Exile? They're like, oh my God, look at all this customization. You can do whatever you want. You can put the points wherever you want. There's such a huge degree of customization, they said, before they went on like a website and looked up the optimal skill placement. It's total bullshit. There's not really customization. If there's an optimal choice, there's not customization. Because if you're just winging it, you're either like a really, really casual player, at which point the end game doesn't really matter to you, or you're looking up a guide, in which case you're not customizing a fucking thing. Same with this. If you care this much about the end game that you've watched this far in the video, what did you do? You looked up a guide, you looked up where to put your Paragon points, and you did it. So, fucking, not like, including all the shit that I'm not doing on each Paragon board, half the Paragon board's gone to waste. Never going to be used. So like so much of the design's out the window, right out of the gate. Customization's a bit of a myth. The fact that you can doesn't mean you should. The evidence is you're not going to find this Paragon layout in a guide because I made my own build. It's not very good, but it's as good as I could figure out to make it for what I wanted to do, which was make a basic skill-centric rogue build around Heartseeker. And it's extra crit chance and extra attack speed and extra move speed. Like, it's really good setup for my build, but it's not a good build. So that customization really kind of out the window. And I'll be honest, I don't have a very good fix for that. Except, like, it's not the most grievous sin in the world to be wasteful. If there's an optimal path, just use the optimal path. But don't sit here and pretend it's such an awesome customizable system. It's kind of mediocre. All right, here we go with engaging world boss content. In the meantime, let's talk about the Tree of Whispers. Great idea, kind of, on paper. It's like a re-envisioning of bounties in Diablo 3. A lot of people didn't like bounties. I liked the idea of bounties. But like, you know, this is kind of the same thing. But what happens, right? You get to oh, that was not good. I got hit a little bit. So like, you get to the Tree of Whispers and you do all your things, and you like, let's say you're looking for a helmet upgrade. You're looking for a helmet upgrade, fine. And you do like 15 minutes of Tree of Whispers content. You collect 100 things, you kill 50 of an enemy type, you do like a cellar, you really speedrun the dungeon, and you get your 10 things, you go to Tree of Whispers, and he offers you, the Tree of Whispers offers you like 3 things, and it's like boots, weapons, and amulets. Shit out of luck for your if you wanted a chest piece or a helmet. If you wanted a helmet, you're out of luck. Kind of. Now, that in and of itself isn't bad. Okay? Say, here's how it actually goes. Like, that's inherently not a crime. Better luck next time. You do more Tree Whispers, and in the meantime, you might find a good item or two. You might find a good Seed Legendary. A good Legendary. Go to... Now you do another one, right? You're level 89, like you do Tree of Whispers. You're really looking for a helmet at this point. You've had all, and he says cache of 2-handed weapons, cache of gloves, cache of helmet. You're like, yes, helmets. And like. And then you get in there, and you open it, and the helmet they drop, it's like two helmets, and they're both sacred. They're not ancestral; they're sacred. I'm level 89. I don't know how else to say that I don't need sacred items anymore. Why? Like, it's a waste. You wasted my time again. After getting my hopes up. Also, it's gonna drop items that aren't helmets too. So like, say it finally happens and you're like, oh sweet, you know, this happened. You do the Tree of Whispers. And you get there, and it's a cache of helmets. You're like, yes! And you get your cache of helmets, and the Tree of Whispers is like, I hope you like chess pieces, nerd! And it's like, you open the cache of helmets, and it's one yellow sacred helmet, 2 chest pieces, a juice box, and an expired coupon for free Denny's Grand Slam breakfast. Like, that's the sort of shit you get from Tree of Whispers. The caches are a joke. Like, here's an option for targeted drop content. It's a bit luck-based because you might not get the slot you need, but if you get the slot you need, it better be the slot you need! You are wasting people's time. Like, and then open it up and it be sacred when you're 89? What the fuck is that? Are you kidding me? So like, you're sensing some of the like, this is just some of the problems, right? That's not even all nitpicks. Those are like legitimate things. What are nitpicks? What's the button to evade? Spacebar. What's the button to climb shit? Spacebar. So you climb something for like 7 seconds. You climb to the top of a fucking, you know, you climb to the top of a cliff, and then you go press space, and you take a couple steps, press space to evade, dash out, and you get like sucked back with the force of a junkyard magnet to the fucking cliffside and start climbing back down the cliff. Who left that in the game? That's such an easy fix. Just like 1 second delay before you can climb back down something you climbed over. Before you can jump back over something you just jumped in. That way somebody can evade it. Boy, I paid such close attention to that close and engaging fight. Grand caches, always subpar, also. That's a nitpick. Wow. Sacred chest armor, guys. Farrell's Den. Farrell's Den, this is what I got tier 29 at my level. Total trash. Waste of inventory space. Fix your grand caches, okay? That's a nitpick. Combat text. What have you noticed while I've been playing? That's a nitpick. I'm playing a game like, you know, I'm out there fighting a bunch of enemies. Did you see any damage numbers? No, because I turned them off. Let me be honest with you, viewer. You're not Rain Man, are you? You're just not. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I need you to be honest with me. Do you need 75 damage numbers per second on your screen? Like, I just hit each of those enemies like 3-4 times each. The numbers are useless. Here's a tip. You know you're strong enough if their health bars go down quick enough. I was able to discern that I can do this content by watching their health bars. So you can turn those off. You ask me, damage numbers should be off by default, but that's not even the nitpick. What's a nitpick? I turned damage numbers off. Look what I see in a second here. Watch. Vulnerable, 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 vulnerable. Do you think I need that? Do you think the graphic designers that put hours and hours and hours and hours into designing these enemies want you to see the word vulnerable and a bunch of fucking useless numbers in front of their work? Let me tell you something. You know how I know an enemy's vulnerable? Their health bar turns purple. You know how else I know an enemy is vulnerable? I mouse over them and their health bar at the top of the screen turns purple. That's 2 ways, which is already 1 way more than I need. I don't need the word vulnerable popped up any more than I need the words knocked down, or slowed, or stunned, or chilled over their names. Like, turn it off. That should have been in the damage numbers. The word vulnerable is so extraneous that I shouldn't have to spell it out to some paycheck. We talked about the map. The map is like, I need my like timers need to be really obvious. Aspects are cool, but again, like, what is the sell value all about? 35 gold. Like, if you decide you don't need an aspect anymore because you find a better one, it costs you several $100,000 to extract the aspect. Give us 20% of it back and vend it. For fuck's sake. Quit cheaping out. And look at the size of the aspect inventory. I need you, developers, to quantify me the gameplay value added by making the aspect inventory only 2 rows. By making it as small as it is. What does that add to your video game, your fucking AAA masterpiece? Do you have an answer? No. And honestly, if you couldn't think of an answer in 3 seconds, it wasn't a good answer. You don't really have one. So make that inventory bigger. Make it way bigger. Make it 3 times as big. Stop wasting our fucking time. Okay? You ever try to gear an alt? Man, you know what? Sacred gear? Sacred gear. I'm going to get, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to level a character. I'm going to level an alt. And then as soon as they hit level 50, I'm going to have full sacred gear. So it feels really good. It feels like driving a Lexus, man. So I'm going to farm really good sacred seed gear for my druid, for when my druid gets level 50. Too bad sacred items require the fucking level I am. Okay? Why? If the power of an item is based on the item power, then why does the level requirement exist? What does the level requirement add to an item besides a gate? You're wasting our fucking time again. It means nothing. It doesn't do anything. It's just in the way. It just makes it shitty to gear alts. Awful design. So what's the difference? Another minor nitpick. Your shit hitting the fan over here and you're clicking. Sometimes you can click. You can be clicking shit. See what just happened? The chat window opened. Now it's in the way. And I start pressing my skills. And the numbers, like if you click the wrong spot, like around, like wherever this arrow is, you can click the arrow by accident and open the chat box sometimes. Like, that's a nitpick, okay? Whoever thought it was okay to be able to mouse activate a chat box in the middle of an ARPG should be on the side of the road selling pencils from a cup. But now I'm really just rambling. So, like, there's a big old patch coming. I hear it's a 13-page patch. I want to be wrong, and I want that patch to fix so many of my concerns. Because I don't want games to fail. I'm not one of those people that's like, man, this is slightly inconvenient and slightly sloppy game design, so I hope it fails and the company goes under, blah, 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 blah. Like, I know I'm being hyperbolic, but, like, I want games to succeed. Okay? But I gotta be honest, I don't have faith that they're gonna do it. First off, everything, like, classes need to be balanced, okay? And they're not gonna get that right. I'll tell you why. First off, they're not trying to balance League of Legends here. Like, it's not like they have 140 fucking champions and they've all got to work. And they can't balance League of Legends because what do? Every mid-season, every preseason, every season beginning, they're like, okay, we changed these 45 champions. Okay, we changed the way this basic mechanic of, like, damage calculations work. We changed the way the map works. We changed these 75 items. We added these 10 items. We changed, like, the passives bar, whatever. God awful. I haven't played it in 7 years. But it's like a shell game. They change 85 things. They, like, go into, like, the balance control room. And they, like, turn 85 dials, flip 146 levers, press 13 buttons, and, like, shit it out as a patch and say maybe it'll fix this time. Blizzard can't go down this road because it's not going to work. You know what's going to happen, right? They're going to nerf like 13, 14 different moves across all the classes. They're going to buff another 25 moves across all the classes. They're going to buff shitty items. They're going to nerf overpowered items. They're going to make some items rarer. They're going to put in some new items. They're going to nerf some enemy types. They might even buff a couple enemy types. And they're going to declare it fixed. And what's immediately going to happen? A new meta. Several builds are going to be way the fuck overpowered. What is the fix? I'm not a game designer. It shouldn't be my problem. If you really want my fucking thoughts on it, which I do have, Blizzard can pay me. But you know what? I'm feeling a little charitable. Here's what it is. And this is a wish list because it's never going to happen. Okay? You know all this AI shit that's going around? Like, you get fucking AI is like making the best art. And I don't mean the best. I wish I could undo that, but I'm not going to edit this video. AI makes passable art. Impressive. Let's put that AI to work. You know what AI can do? If they have all of, like, the data metrics about, like, what skills are doing the best, what skills are the most used, like what skills are overperforming, what skills are underperforming, like where people are farming for items the most efficiently, least efficiently, And then they get all this data, and then they try and manually act upon all this data that no human could really parse. Put some of this fucking AI to work. You know what would work? You get the basic design down pat and some base numbers for like skills and abilities and gear, and then you have the AI do the tweaking. The AI can monitor all the data on a minute-to-minute basis. Go like, this skill is overperforming. The next day, your barrage is doing 0.16% less damage than it was the day before. You're barely going to notice. A couple of things are going to get nerfed. A couple of things are going to get buffed on a day-to-day basis over the course of a couple of weeks. You know what's going to happen? Your build might not feel as good, but you're either used to it or you've changed. Other builds have gotten better because those have gotten buffed because they were underperforming, and a sort of equilibrium will be reached with AI. This is what I would consider a good use of AI. Hey, these items are being used in like every build. Let's nerf the item by 0.2%. See if people still use it. Is it still good? It's still good. Nerf by another 0.1%. Okay, now people are using it less, but it's not bad. They're equilibrium. That's the sort of precision that can happen in like little micro adjustments over time that AI could actually do. I would ordinarily be against like AI taking people's jobs, but boy, people ain't doing this job because there ain't no balanced game. Blizzard never balanced a game in their fucking life. Okay, that's the big fix that I wish they would do, but they're never gonna do. Gem rarity, what in the fuck is that? Okay, make gems way more rare. Make them worth like 100 grand, so you might want to sell them and make some money. Put them in recipes for elixirs. You could, make loot-based elixirs. If you want people to target gear drops, don't do it by enemy type. Do it by elixir type. We're already just drinking elixirs for the XP. Give us a reason to like elixirs. Besides pushing nightmare dungeons. Like, let us, I really want a good crossbow, so give me an elixir that drops crossbow. Make the gems be a component of that recipe. A royal gem. That way I actually have to save up royal gems. There's a thought. Okay, so get rid of targeted drops based on monster type, so you're not punishing people for doing the wrong dungeons with nightmare dungeon keys. What an absurd design decision that was. Get rid of it. Way item affixes better. Fucking like 8% imbued skill damage. Imbued skills are, I get 2 per cast. It better be like 70%. Get real. You gotta weigh those better. No more 2% chance for a 6% skill boost when you shit your pants on a Friday afternoon. You know what I mean? You could have affix essences off the top of my head. Boy, I've really been trying to get crit damage on a sword, per se. And you find another sword that has a bunch of shitty affixes, but it has crit damage, and it has a perfect roll. You should be able to, like, extract that affix and throw it into, like, you could throw it into the occultist, and it would add extra weight for the chance for your next reroll to be, like, that affix at the weight that you found it. So if I find a perfect crit damage roll, maybe it'll give me like a 15% chance extra of it being that perfect affix roll. It doesn't have to be overpowered, but it's another way. It's another way to make gear worth something more than vendoring. Okay, just an idea off the top of my head. Give the open world a reason to exist. My God, we didn't even go over this. Nightmare dungeons. Excuse me. Just like people are trying to push nightmare dungeons, and they're like, man, I don't like having to walk all the way out to the fucking nightmare dungeons. It really sucks. And they're like, okay, we'll let you teleport to your nightmare dungeon. And people are like, yay! Yay! Okay, fucking idiots. Okay, they shoved the shit under the bed again and called the room clean. I'm sorry, you're not addressing the problem. The problem is the open world isn't worth it. Remember when they fucking talked about this game and everybody's like, oh my God, it's going to be an open world Diablo game. It's going to be so cool. And already we're chopping our own dicks off trying to skip the open world. Here's an idea. When you get a nightmare key, you see this little thing? Like from the nearest waypoint, and it like paths out the way to the nightmare dungeon. When you use a nightmare key, everything from here to there could be engaging in some way. Just off the top of my head. Those enemies can scale to the level you found in the dungeon. You could have like several ambushes along the way of like elite enemies. That way you're getting some loot. You're getting some XP. Okay, those events that nobody likes, you could put events with good rewards on the way. A chance of the butcher jumping you on the way in the open world. Fucking chance of a treasure goblin along the path. And it would be like in a way that's visually obvious for other players in the open world. So they see you going to do a dungeon, and they see you going to do a dungeon. They might want to join you for your nightmare key. Suddenly you've created a dynamic way to create groups for nightmare dungeons. Wouldn't that be something? If you really insist on letting people teleport to the fucking nightmare dungeon, at least make traveling to the nightmare dungeon give them like a little bit more XP for your glyph at the end of the dungeon if you travel there manually. That way, you're not abandoning this open world that you work so hard to create. What a ridiculous notion to just throw that out the window immediately at the first sign of complaints from idiots. So path to nightmare dungeons. Here's the thing with season 1. Here's a way to really quick make it not feel like you're flushing all your effort down the toilet in the preseason. Give players double XP until their highest level character of that class in non-season. So if I stopped right now until season 1 and I want to re-roll a rogue, give me double XP until level 89. Just one time. I'm not saying do this every season, but do it for season 1 because the preseason is so short. And it just feels like I'm playing right now. It feels like the only reason I'm playing is to get my money's worth. Like any progress I made is going to be abandoned, so why am I playing? You know, maybe because I know I'll get double XP. And then maybe give players like a little token that gives them the magic find affix for like 1 day of playtime. So that they can use that token and like gear up a little quicker. Just to get back on their feet a little quicker, just for season 1. You know? My God, plagiarize bosses. I don't want to like name drop Lost Ark again, but like, dude, you're a multi-billion-dollar company. What are they gonna do? Go in and copy their fucking bosses, for Christ's sake. Have your team, your enemy design team sit down, play the game for a week, take every fun boss encounter, and just put a Diablo skin on them. For God's sake. Boss fights need to be so much better in this game. Not including, balancing them, obviously, to make them more fun. World event notifiers. I should be able to know when a world event is happening while I'm in a dungeon. Like, really, the best way to do it is put a clock up here. A certain game that shall not be named, Lost Ark, has just a clock where you can see when events are going to happen. And like, hey, like, when world bosses are fun, like, what if you're going to miss it? Like, why are you punishing players that only have, like, an hour a day to play? They never get to see world bosses. It's okay to have world bosses show up multiple times over the course of an hour. If you're 5 minutes late, you don't miss it. That'd be nice. And you only get rewards for the first time you kill it. It might be so fun you do it again with a friend, do it 2 or 3 more times with strangers to get used to the fight mechanics and get better at it because it's fun. Once you start making good boss fights, that'll happen. Not yet, but maybe soon. But like, you just give rewards the first time. It's okay. Nobody's gonna be like, the bosses showed up like 5 times in a row. That breaks my immersion. Like, fuck. If anybody says that, it's okay to call them a nerd, give them a wedgie, and ban their Battle.net account. Who are they going to cry to? It's in the terms of service. You can ban them for whatever reason you want. So put a clock in the game so that we can see world events and we're not going to miss them. Make them spawn a little more liberally. It's okay to have them spawn back to back and only give rewards once per player. It's okay to do all of that. You probably should. Fix the Tree of Whispers. See this? Okay, let's see what I get. We're gonna find out together. Two-handed weapons. Okay. I got 2 crossbows. That's in and of itself not always true. But it's only 2. Oh, no. It's okay, so it's a crossbow and a bow, but they are two-handed weapons. And then some gloves. Okay? Dude, if I get boots, if I get a boots cache, it better look like I looted a Foot Locker. Okay? Make it 4 or 5. Make them all boots. If you insist on a little goodie bag with it, fine. But the main event better be exciting. The fact that these were both ancestral is a minor miracle. The fact that I got more than one is a minor miracle. Fix the sacred and ancestral level requirements. Fucking ridiculous. Item levels are the only thing that affects the power of an item. So if it's sacred, it should require level 50. If it's ancestral, it should require level 70. Everything else, useless. Okay? If you really insist on player level making a difference, it should affect the item level of the drop. If you insist. Okay? And then fix the other dumb quality of life shit I talked about a little bit ago with the space to climb, aspect inventory size, stuff like that. Just, come on. Those will probably get fixed. So, completely unproductive, completely unwatchable video. I know. But this is more of a diary than anything else because I'm sick of just thinking about this shit and not saying it out loud. There's a lot to like here, but my takeaway shouldn't be, I wish Lost Ark had better loot. My takeaway shouldn't be, I wish Lost Ark wasn't so scumbaggishly monetized. Okay? I've been playing Diablo since like a week and a half after Diablo 1 came out. Like early 1997. I shouldn't be wishing that a different game was slightly better so that I could never play Diablo again. I should be taking away, man, all those Diablo clones really don't hold a flame to the original. But hey, what do I know? I just play video games. Activision Blizzard, I should be nicer to these people. Activision Blizzard is only a small multi-billion-dollar company. I should cut them some slack. They've only been making Diablo games for 27 years.